wouldn't be a close game at Allen Fieldhouse without some controversy, would it? No, of course not. Controversy did not cloud Kansas's 83-81 victory over TCU. That's Riley Davis. I'm Brian Rauf with Heat Check CBB here on the Sleepers Media YouTube channel, breaking down Kansas's victory over TCU. This was a really hard fought game and a good game, an exciting game. Me and Carter Elliott talked in the pregame about how we expected a big Kansas win. Hadn't seen a lot from TCU yet this season. This was definitely TCU's best performance of the season. And fair to say TCU got robbed. We're going to get into the game itself here in a little bit, but I also think it's impossible to talk about this game without starting with the flagrant foul that was called on Ernest Uday, hitting Hunter Dickinson. TCU had the lead at the time. Kansas gets your free throws, ties the game, leads to Hunter Dickinson's eventual game-winning layup where he may or may not have pushed off, and that may or may not have been called. That kind of decided the game, Riley. As you're looking at this, what did you see?
Yeah, we can start with the flagrant foul. At least in slow-mo when you watched it, like I thought Hunter sold it. I definitely thought he added a little acting to it. I kind of see why it was called a flagrant. I hate to like go to bat for stripes because especially the Allen Fieldhouse stripes, but I didn't think it was like if I completely remove my biases. Remember when Duke got hosed on that flagrant call last year?
Yes.
Where like the Virginia Tech player punched, I think they might have hit Filipowski inadvertently in the throat, and they didn't call it a flagrant, I think. And I think if that wasn't a flagrant, now now I'm confusing myself. I'm like, wait, was it flagrant? Anyway,
See, I
I
think by
feel like
letter of the law, like he got hit in the face, they generally call that a flagrant. I do not think it was intentional. I do not think it was excessive. I thought it was generally a basketball move. I think if they would have called it with 10 minutes left in the game, there obviously is not this uproar, right? So I see why it was called. I think there's a very strong case for you to also not call it. I probably in the camp of not calling it, but that's a tough break.
Yeah, I think what I was trying to say was it seemed like even with my biases against Duke, notwithstanding that Duke got hosed worse by that call than TCU did with this one, if that makes sense, even though they were sort of opposite calls. Yeah, like you said, by the letter of the law, it's always tough when it kind of ends up being a game deciding play with something like that is questionable, that isn't cut and dry, that there does need to be a little more nuance then, because it clearly was inadvertent. But we see inadvertent flagrants happen. That's part of the game. But I think as a whole, kind of bigger picture takeaways moving away from just the flagrant is like I still don't really know what to make of this Kansas team. It's so rare that a 13-1 team, especially a 13-1 Kansas team, you're not like, yes, surefire national title contenders. But here we are where I just don't like, I think they're indisputably one of the best 10 teams in the country, but they still seem a notch below Houston and Arizona, UConn, Purdue. Of course, I'd even put them a notch below like Tennessee, Kentucky, UNC. Like I don't think they're quite on those teams' levels. And it's just when you look at the schedule, you see they constantly find themselves in close games. And granted, they win it, and I think that's because they have Bill Self on the sidelines, and good coaches tend to win close contests like that. But yeah, it just doesn't feel like those dominant Kansas teams that we've gotten so used to, especially when you look at like a game like this with a top 30-ish TCU team. How many times over the past decade plus have we seen Kansas, beat a team like that by 15 to 20 in Allen Fieldhouse, where it's not even a contest, where it's like, oh, maybe this team will be a little frisky. They're pretty good. It's a strong Big 12 team, and Kansas eviscerates their hopes within the first 15 minutes. Like, didn't happen this game.
The issue with Kansas is this. Hunter Dickinson had 30 points. KJ Adams had 18. McCullough had 16. Dwan Harris had 10. The rest of the team combined for 9. Like there isn't depth on this team, and not just like depth of players, because they can extend the rotation to 7 with Timberlake and Furphy. They can do that.
Mm-hmm.
But their scoring options are very limited, particularly with how DeJuan Harris does not want to shoot. Those scoring options are very, very limited. And I think they've gotten to this point because McCullough has improved so much offensively, really throughout his college career. But that's why they're getting by with limited options. And I think that'll come back to hurt them in March, but we're not there. And Bill Self has found a way to get by. McCullough has made big play after big play down the stretch of big games. Hunter Dickinson did so in this game. He's obviously a big-time player. DeJuan Harris made a whole bunch of threes late. Like, this is against Kentucky. This is a clutch team. And this has been a clutch team, but they're not perfect. And one of the things that TCU did to them was turn them over. Kansas turned it over 18 times in this game. It's one thing TCU was good, really good at, speeding up the pace and turning you over. They did that. They shot the ball well from three. Trevion Tennyson hit 6 threes. Like, he was the story of this game, the story of the second half, when it looked like TCU was gonna come back and win this game. Best performance of the season from TCU. It stinks to have your best performance and not win the game, especially losing it in that manner. But I'm certainly coming away from this feeling better about TCU than I was going in, particularly because they hadn't really had a lot of, not necessarily close contests, but even just games against good teams. Right. And so to have this data point now where you're at this level, not just against Kansas, but at this level at Allen Fieldhouse, I think bodes well for TCU, at the very least, being a tournament team and finishing in the top half of the Big 12.
I'm with you on that. And, if you look at the Big 12 landscape, it sort of seems like you got Houston, Baylor, Kansas all at the top. And I hope I didn't come across as overly negative on Kansas, because I still think they should be seen among the favorites. And the fact that Bill Self has manufactured like another really good offense with limited shooters, like the second year in a row, dude's a genius. Like, it goes without saying. But even just looking at like that top three, it seems like after Houston, Baylor, and Kansas, there's an opening. Like, maybe it's Oklahoma who fills it. Maybe Texas Tech can build a little momentum after their big win this weekend. But I think TCU, it has to be in that mix as well. Like, I think they showed a lot this weekend. This is a squad that I sort of disregarded after they really should have lost to Georgetown, like a really bad Georgetown team, when they got away with stepping out of bounds and hitting that 3-pointer to win it.
That's before we move on, I'll let you finish your point. And I had this brought up to me on Twitter, and I think it was an excellent point. If you're a TCU fan, would you have rather gotten the call in this Kansas game and not gotten that call in the Georgetown game, so you'd have the win over Kansas and the loss to Georgetown, or keep things as they were, where you got the call against Georgetown and didn't get it against Kansas?
I think you got to go with the big win. Those, like, especially on the road in Allen Fieldhouse. Yeah, you take that.
I think so too. It. But yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
No. I like that. I like what Jameer Nelson did in this game a lot. It seems like he could be hitting a stride. I know he only had 10 points. I want to say he had 6 or 7 assists though, and some of his passing was absolutely surgical. Just nailing skip passes to find Trevion Tennyson, or just like running the offense well. Emmanuel Miller is kind of made that leap stepping into the feature role for this team that we thought he was capable of. And even with Tennyson, I'm interested to see if this hot shooting stretch can continue. I know he's currently shooting 49% on the year, so pretty decent sample size, like halfway through the year. But I think he kind of exemplifies why it's in this transfer portal era. It's never a bad idea to take a player off a winning team. He came from Texas A&M Corpus Christi, who won the Southland last year. 2 years in a row.
2 years in a row.
That means something. And, he's not going to be nailing off balance threes, flying off of pin downs every single night. But, like, shoot, if he can give you, let's say, 1 or 2 more performances like that, and hopefully you win both of them, like, it's worth it. It's worth it to get those wins in the Big 12.
Yeah, he was added to this team for his shooting, right? He's not going to put this performance up every game. But I think we saw what the addition could be and the element it could add. Now, TCU's resume, they've played 3 teams that rank in the KenPom Top 100. They've lost all 3 of those games. Neutral against Clemson, neutral against Nevada, and then here at Kansas. No bad loss among them, which I think is why this coming stretch is important for them. Because as far as Big 12 schedules go, moving forward, like you have a pretty good 5-game stretch here. Wednesday, they get Oklahoma at home, which I think will be a good barometer for them because Oklahoma is a good team. We've seen that throughout the course of the season. Only one loss for the Sooners, but I think a winnable game with this
Mhm.
being at TCU. Then you do get Houston at home, the only undefeated team in the country left. But then you go at Cincinnati, home against Iowa State, at Oklahoma State. So this is a 5-game stretch where if TCU can finish that with a winning record, 3-2, 4-1 would be really nice, but 3-2, then I think TCU is looking good, and I think you can take the momentum from this game and certainly do that. And you kind of have to capitalize on these stretches in the Big 12 because they don't come around very often. So if I'm TCU, I'm encouraged by what I saw, but I need to take that momentum and carry it over and not have this loss turn into 2 because things
Right.
could snowball pretty quickly, especially with a resume that's this flimsy.
Right. And I think, Jamie Dixon has done a tremendous job elevating the floor of TCU. And, they pretty much every year it seems like they're going to be in the hunt to be either on the bubble or get like a 7 or 8 seed, maybe win a tournament game or two, which I think when you look at their history, that's about as good as you can ask for. But this has sort of been that time of the season where they've fallen apart, where they've unraveled a little bit. Like looking back at their records in 2020, 2021, the COVID season started out 9-2, finished 12-14. Next season started out 10-1, finished 21-13. Last year started out 13-1, finished 22-13. So it's always once they hit the tough stretch in conference play, sometimes it snowballs. And yeah, like you said, that makes this stretch even more important. Like you really think the home game against Oklahoma feels about as must win as you can get. Like maybe Houston's due for a loss and you can pick them off at home as well. But yeah, you really want to start this 4-game stretch off with a home win.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see from TCU perspective if they can maintain this level of play. We know what to expect from Kansas. They're going to continue to be Kansas. They're the favorites to win this league, win the Big 12. They're going to be in the top 5 pretty much all season long. We know what to expect from them. Plenty more big games coming up for Kansas too. I know TCU Houston will be one. Kansas has a bit of a break here themselves. UCF going to Orlando this week, but we'll see Kansas back in action Saturday, and then they host Oklahoma on Saturday as well. So a big week for Oklahoma here as we recap TCU and Kansas. Any final thoughts on either the Horned Frogs or Kansas or the way this game ended up?
Uh, Hunter Dickinson showed why he's arguably the most skilled offense. Well, no, never mind. Zach Edey still exists. One of the most offensive skilled bigs of the country. Huge game from him. Felt like he was so dominant all over the place the first half. Secondly, you just mentioning UCF. I feel like there's a Disney World joke to be made here with like waiting in line with your kids for hours to go ride. It's a small world after all. Seems more enjoyable than cheering for UCF right now. That's going to be a rough one for the.
I will say, as somebody who recently went to Disney World and rode It's a Small World, trying to like gather tiny little children around and chase them around the park to get them to sit in that boat for 10 minutes. It's a pretty long ride. Was kind of nice. The songs were annoying, but just to be able to sit and not worry was kind of nice. Was kind of nice.
Maybe I'm being too hard on UCF. It's just that they got blown out by
bad.
Kansas State.
They're
Yeah,
bad.
yeah,
They're bad. They're bad. Well, that'll do it for us here. Make sure you tune in back into Sleepers Media YouTube channel for all the previews and recaps on all the big games for every big game around the country. For Riley Davis, I'm Brian Ralph. Talk to you next time.